What's up, guys? We are back. The Fitness Profit Multipliers here, Anthony and Jimmy, and we are talking today about marketing math. Oh, my favorite subject in the world, math. But when you own a business and you want a profitable business and you want to take home more money, this is the kind of math that you need to learn how to do. So we're going to be talking about marketing math, and doing this math correctly is going to explode your business and your wallet with more profit. So Big Jimmy, I'm going to have to let you take the reins today, man. I mean, math is not my forte. I hate to speak that about myself, but I just don't like doing a ton of math. So You're the numbers guy. So what's up, man? What's this marketing math that we're going to be explaining to everybody today?
So the first thing that we want to talk about with this is a lot of people out there will talk to you about lead cost, right? And they'll say, we can get you the cheapest leads around, right? Your lead cost can be, $2 or whatever they want to say the lead cost is, right? But lead cost is not the entire equation, right? How much does it cost you to acquire that lead is not the entire picture. And so we want to look at the math of marketing, not as just cost per lead, but there's all these other costs that go along with it, depending on conversion rates and all these other things, right? So just because you have a high lead cost does not mean that your ad campaign is bad. Just because you have a low lead cost doesn't mean your ad campaign is good, right? These things are kind of independent of each other. And this just talks about the Facebook and the Google side of it, the digital advertising spend, or when you're talking about mailers or door hangers or magazine articles or any other thing that you're going to use as a marketing tool, right? As a outreach marketing tool, not some of these other marketing tools that we're going to use inside of our facility, like
like
referral, what? Like referral and these other things that we see, right? So when we look at all the things that we can do to market our business and to grow it, there's an associated cost with every single one of these things, right? There's an associated cost with referral generation, right? If it's not just the time cost of your staff putting that together and training them and talking about how to get more referrals and that kind of thing, there's an associated cost to it, right? There's an associated cost to getting organic traffic through Facebook or your website, which Anthony is one of his big poles in the water, right? But there's still an associated cost with that, right? The time cost there. So we want to talk about the cost of all of these things and what actually makes a profitable campaign. And the first thing that I want to talk about is Facebook as a whole, because you can use that math to push into Google or any other paid strategy when we talk about this math, right? So really quickly, guys, I don't know if we're going to share this on the screen because it's not quite finished in terms of it looking clean. But I'm going to pull up my spreadsheet that we worked on last week to kind of plug some numbers in and talk to you guys about it.
If you want to share the screen, we can. But I want to mention something before we share the screen here, even though the spreadsheet's not done. And again, guys, we're going to give this spreadsheet to you. That's why we're putting it together. But I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because you're either paying with two things. You're either paying with money or you're paying with time. And people forget that one, that they're paying with time. So yes, organic marketing is a big pole for my business. It's a big fishing pole for my business and a good way and how we get clients in. However, it takes a lot of time. And how do you scale things? You scale things with money, right? So if I want to continue doing my organic marketing strategy and continue to grow the way we've been, then I need to hire somebody and a team of people to do that strategy. So it's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money. So I'm just so glad that you brought that to attention, because people are like, yeah, I do organic marketing. It doesn't cost me anything. It costs you your time. Because what else could you be doing during that time? And you're never going to get your time back. Time is one of those resources that is finite. We only have, X amount of minutes and hours on this planet. And once that time stopwatch is up, you're done. So you got to remember that time is probably the one variable that you want to try to get back. And I would recommend highly to leverage the scalable portions of it with money. And then, you know, you have to start in the beginning with time. It's just the way it goes. You got to start with time. You're doing everything by yourself, you know, but slowly as you start to grow a business, try to leverage money to get you back time. Because once you have that time freedom, your whole life is going to change. So that's just my spiel on that, man. So you can go ahead, you can share your screen, and
okay,
we could get going on this. And for those of you who are listening to this on the podcast, if you click that link below, you'll be able to see the podcast live. So you guys can check us out on YouTube, and you could watch us go through this. But again, for your listening experience on the podcast, you guys will be able to hear what we're talking about in the same way. So Jimmy has started to share. All right,
guys. So we have a couple of different things that we're looking at when we look at our marketing math, right? And like Anthony said, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can kind of see what's going on with the spreadsheet, right? So there's a couple of different things we want to look at. Now, most of you guys don't really know what your percentages look like in terms of reach, close, set, and what your appointments look like on that side, right? So we can just plug in numbers on our number-based side, plug in some numbers and get our percentages out. But what I want to focus on today is what the marketing math looks like for Facebook and how that relates to how many clients you're going to have a year from now, right? So if we can assume some numbers and we can plug some numbers in and things will change, right? Now, not everything exists in a vacuum. So you have to have your average churn rate plugged into this. Now, for some of you, 5 or 6% is typically where my business history has been. We've been in business for about 7 or 8 years now. So typically the business history has been 5 to 6%, right? You may be higher than that, right? And we can just plug this number in and change all the numbers, right? It doesn't change all the numbers all the way across because you got to change all the numbers all the way across, but it will change what we end up with, right? Now, let's just look at Facebook, okay? Well, things up. Well, you get what I'm doing here, okay? So when we look
hit Command Z, man, undo what you just did because you erased the whole percentage. Oh, you have a Mac, a regular. I have a Mac, so just hit undo. No. Let's just hit undo. I think it's right there, the undo button, right next to the print. There's a print button. There you go. There you go. There
we go. Okay. All right. Excel's okay for me. The operating system.
This guy knows how to use. This guy knows how to do math, but can't figure out how Excel works.
So for those of you listening on the podcast, you get a great representation of what we're doing here. So when we look at our marketing math, let's just take a look at Facebook, for example. So we look at our percentages and we look at how many clients we're going to need every month to get to our ultimate goal, right? So for example, if I have 100 leads a month from Facebook and we're reaching 30%, so we talked about this on another podcast, what numbers you need to track, right? You reach 30%, 65% of those people.
So wait, Jimmy, let's go through it really quick. I'm slow. What does reached mean?
So we look at reach. That's how many people you actually got in contact with.
What does contact mean?
You pick up the phone, you dialed, and they actually answered the phone, right?
Okay. So that makes it very, very simple for you guys.
Yeah. If they actually answered the phone, this is not like a text back and forth saying, oh, yeah, I'm interested. This is literally you connected with the lead. And you could have connected with the lead and they could have told you to screw off on the phone. That's still a reach, right? So it's reaching that lead. And what we found is that you got to reach out to that lead 6 times minimum, right? Because you're going to find that between the 4th and the 6th reach out, you're going to get a little bit of an uptick right? You'll get a lot of people on the first couple calls, but then you got to keep calling them, right? So let's say you're getting a 30%. Let's just use these rough numbers, okay? 30% of the people that the leads you're getting in contact with. Then of the people you're getting in contact with, you're setting appointments with 65 of them. 60% of those people that you set.
Wait, so hold on 1 second. One second. I want to just clarify this. So he's setting 65% of the people he got in touch with, not of the total number of leads.
Right. Right.
So that's where he's getting that number. Because I mean, listen, I wish I could set appointments with 65% from the total leads, but it's going from how many people you actually spoke to how many actually set that appointment.
Right. Then you have 60% of those set appointments show, right? They actually show up in your facility. And then of those people that actually show up in your facility, let's assume we're closing 85% of them. Now, these are real numbers for my business, okay? Your numbers may be different, but we can change these numbers within this spreadsheet to hit a different result out of this. So you can plug your numbers in and change it up, right? Now, I'm not going to do that right away because last time I did that live, it screwed up our spreadsheet or what I'm trying to do. So let's just go down to cost per lead, right? Now, cost per lead doesn't tell the whole story. So if we're going to go cost per lead, let's assume we get $10 leads, right? And we have generally a 10% conversion rate. Our upfront cash value for our membership is $400, right? On the upfront cash that we're going to get from that member when they close, okay? So, and that's just the first installment, right? They're going to be worth more long-term. But then we look at this and this changes all of our metrics, right? Now, our monthly value of each client down here is 420, right? So that translates up into what our revenue looks like. So you can look at your client number and your revenue number up here and see where you're going, right? So the marketing math is the lead cost is not all of the equation, right? Because I could get a $10 lead, but if I only reach 10% of those people, my numbers go drastically down, right? I have drastic differences in the amount of clients that I end up with in 12 months. But if I keep that, and my average cost per month changes too, right? So if I'm at 60%, if I go back to where I was, and I'm at $10 leads, that's freaking amazing, right? But it's still profitable if I'm at a $40 lead, right? So just because your leads are $40 doesn't mean that your campaign isn't working, right? But this gives you a sense of how much you need to spend per day on Facebook. This could also work for Google, right? You can plug the same numbers in for a Google campaign, right? Now, my cost of acquisition is negative, but you can ride that out. You can have a negative cost of acquisition, it would still be fine. Now, our goal is to have a 3x cost of acquisition on the front end with Facebook. That's what we were getting last year. It may be a pipe dream now, but that's what we were getting last year. But if we look at this, if you have a $40 lead cost and you spend $4,000 a month on Facebook, which is $132 a day, and you have 200 members right now, in 12 months, you'll have 282 members, and your gross revenue run rate will put you at a $1.2 million business. It'll be 1.2 for that year with all of your growth because each month will be up, and your total run rate will put you at 1.4, right? And this is starting at $1 million business, right? So we can start this at any type of business, right? We can start it at 100 members, and then it changes everything across, right? And if we're at 100 members and we're acquiring at this rate, we're spending that $4,000 a month, your attrition rate is way less. You're losing less people, so your growth is faster, right? Because you're spending $4,000 a month. And this is where people get hung up, right? It takes you from, if you spend $4,000 a month on Facebook at $40 leads, you'll break even on the front end as long as you have this upfront cash value and this average client number. So go back and listen to our podcast in regards to pricing, right? If you spend $4,000 a month on Facebook, you go from a $500,000 a year business to $1 million a year business in a year. Pretty crazy math, right? For spending $4,000 a month, you spent 50 grand basically for the year. Now, there are other things that happen. Facebook breaks, you got to change your ads, all that kind of stuff happens.
I was just going to say, this is what we're doing right now is like Excel rich, you know, when you're trying to get rich on Excel. But yeah, things are going to break, but it just gives you guys a good idea of what's going on. So again, we didn't finalize this document because there's a lot of things that we want to be able to change, and we want to be able to use this for you guys to use this and change your business ultimately. So like, okay, Jimmy, let's keep everything the same. And for those that are listening, let's try to read out the numbers, but let's change the percentages on the how many people we reached, how many people we set, how many people we showed, how many people closed, because we're striving to have a 30% reach. So out of the total leads that we're getting, 30% of them we're trying to reach. Okay. Yeah. So, but if we're less than that, it's drastically going to change things. And remember, some months you're going to get in touch with people. Some months you may not. You know, maybe you had a change of a salesperson. Maybe the salesperson is not doing a good job on the phone. Maybe you guys started doing better on the phone. So these numbers will constantly fluctuate. So this is just a general rule. If you get to these guidelines, like right here, you have an 85% close rate, which is high. Most gyms don't close at an 85% close rate. So let's change that number to a 65, which is, I think, pretty, I don't know, standard, I guess. But yeah, it drastically changes all these numbers. So this gym, oh wait, what was it before? I'm sorry, I missed it. I don't remember what it was before you changed it. Put it back. So he went from closing, let's see, 85. So you went from closing 10 people a month at this example, spending $132 a day, to, if you change it to 65, 8. So it's 2 less people you're closing every month.
Right.
So it drastically changes your numbers. You still ultimately have doubled your business within a year, and you're still spending the same amount, but it drastically changes how many people. So this is where, sales training comes in. This is why we told you guys, we want you guys to be experts on sales training, because that's where these numbers really make a difference. Like, these are the benchmarks that you should be aiming for. But we want to be able to look at what your business is doing and say, okay, you're only reaching 10%, meaning that you're only getting in contact with 10% of the total leads that you're getting in. That needs to change. So we need to work on that. That's where the bottleneck is. Or, so you can see, if we left everything the same, kept that 65% close rate, if you got in touch with 10% of the total leads, you only closed 3 people, which is still a significant amount of growth, actually. If you look at the spreadsheet and you keep that up, you went from 100 members to 170 members within a year, which is still a really, really good growth rate, but it could be way better.
It could be way better. Right. So if you change these numbers and we go to things that are a little more average, right, the set rate is going to be lower, right? You're going to set appointments with 40%, and then 40% are actually going to show, right? Now we go from getting 1 lead, 1 client out of every 100 people, right? 1 client. That takes us from spending the same amount, going from a $500,000 business a year to an $800,000 business a year. It's a difference of 200 grand, right? More than that, because you were at a 1.1 at the end, right? So this takes us, and this means our cost of acquisition is just ridiculous, right? So our cost of acquisition becomes ridiculous in that moment. So you're actually losing money on ad spend on acquisition of that client, because if you're spending $40 a lead, you're losing that money every month with the ad spend. We don't have that calculated in, but if you look at your cost per acquisition, it's just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So the biggest levers that you can pull are, when we look at reach rate, close rate, and then show rate, right? Now, All of these are going to make an impact on your business. Every single one of these things. So if we go speed to lead on the reach, to reach them, it's speed to lead. Setting them is phone sales, right? Getting them to show is nurture sequences once they book the appointment, right? And closing them is in-person sales skills. Each one of these things needs to be built to make these numbers work for you and to give you a positive ROI on your acquisition, right? Now, we also want to look at some of the factors that factor into non-paid lead acquisition strategies, right? And that's what we're going to focus on next, because that's where your time comes in and how much you could actually spend on those leads to get a positive ROI, right? So we just plug these average numbers in from our business, right? Referrals per month that close is about 5. Some seasons are more than others because we're running certain promotions. Website lead acquisition is about 6 to 8, right? Bark, we use Bark, which is something that you can use. It's about the same acquisition as Facebook in terms of reach and set and close, stuff like that. But you don't get a ton of volume. So that's 1 per month. So our sum is that we're adding 12 clients a month without any real spend. I mean, you'd spend a little on Bark, but the spend here is optimizing your website and running referral promotions, okay? And then we don't do any real Facebook organic in our business. Anthony does a pretty good job of that. So that's a time cost. But what is that time worth and how does that relate? So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share now, but these factors influence your business because these are average factors. So they're just plugged in as average each month. So it's an assumed number, but these things are going to keep your business at least match your churn rate, if not exceed your churn rate without any ad spend. The goal is to meet or exceed churn with these other avenues, and then your ad spend becomes the thing that grows you over time, right? So it'll grow you in the beginning. All this other stuff will grow you in the beginning. But I'll go ahead and stop the share and we can talk a little bit about organic strategies and how that all looks real briefly because we're getting to time here. So
yeah, we're going to save that for another episode. But there's one thing that I did want to cover that again, that sheet is not done. And I can't wait to make it available to you guys because we're going to run through every scenario with that. And the one thing that's not calculated in there is holds. You know, that's another lever that you can pull because when someone goes on hold, they're not paying you. That is not revenue that you're collecting. So that's going to change that variable on that sheet because you could be losing 6 people a month. But if 6 people on average, whatever, go on hold every month, that's 12 people you have to come out of the hole with every month right off the bat. So those are the things that you need to look at too. So again, when it comes to marketing math, you need to look at just more than lead cost. You have to look at total month, how much you're spending, what those closing percentages are, because that's going to make a big difference too. Because like we said, if you're only getting in touch with 10%, it drastically cuts your growth in half. So you guys got to keep that in mind. And if you guys are interested in having us hop on the phone with you and kind of run through this spreadsheet with you, just click that link below in the description. You can book your discovery call there, and we'll definitely help you to get to that next step. But until next time, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, and we are out.